Hello. Hello, Mr. Kangaroo Rat. Oh, and hello to all of you. Um, I just wanted to kind of compile some thoughts on your discussion this week. And let me just adjust this real quick. Um, yeah, please, if you haven't yet, please take a look at, hold on. Well, there's no, let me try something here. Okay, so if you haven't had a chance yet, let's try it. Okay, if you have not had the chance yet, please go to the discussion board and see what I've written to you about the kangaroo rat and bird poop discussion, and then I'll be responding to you on the diabetes and hypothyroid discussion too. But I wanted to combine some of the things that you all said. I really liked what regarding the kangaroo rat. I just wanted to read some of the comments I thought were really great about the loop of Henley. How Vanessa wrote another reason could be that the length of the kangaroo rat's loop of Henley causes water to spend more time traveling through this longer loop. I really like that. And Kayla Shadwick also described it really well. How she wrote the majority of the loop of Henley is in the medulla, and it has a high concentration of sodium there, and water will passively diffuse out. So I'm going to show you kind of a graphic of that. I liked how Ami mentioned the fur, and you would think, why does this guy have fur? He lives in the desert, and actually, we'll learn more about how fur can actually help you stay cool. But that's when we talk about the integumentary system. So let me just show you a few things here that we let's talk about the loop of Henley. First of all, Lauren really described things well. You all wrote valuable things, but but let me just show you a few things. Oh, well, let's mention this first. So one of this is pulling from when you were learning about the special senses and how hearing works. So several of you, you all picked up on the big auditory bulla. That's this structure right over here, right? So we all have this auditory bulla. It's just kind of this bony area where I'm not really certain, but I think it's part of where the middle ear and the inner ear live. It plays a role, I should say, in hearing. The inner ear, of course, is where you have that cochlea, which can hear really high pitches at one end and really low frequency sounds at the other. And somehow this bulla plays a role in all that. In the kangaroo rat, the bulla is huge. And as Lauren and Cadence pointed out, it really helps him to pick up on low frequency sounds, the flap, flap, flap of this owl, or perhaps a predator walking towards him, thump, 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 right? I'm going to eat you, thump, thump, thump. And so anyway, that's kind of cool. I think it's using something we learned and applying it to this little guy. Yes, yes. Whoa, scary. Okay, now let's talk about the loop of Henley. So as several of you mentioned, water follows sodium. That's osmosis. Now, remember, water will follow other things too. As several of you wrote about diabetes, water will follow sugar. It will follow all sorts of solutes, but it's helpful to begin with this. Water follows salt, and you can see that here. Um, that's probably one of the most important processes that occurs in your body is water following salt. So just to review, here is your kidney, and if you zoomed in on it, you see this, this part here, that's the cortex, and then this part here is the medulla, and this shows it right here, right? Here's the medulla, that's kind of the deeper part of the kidney, and here's the cortex, that's the outer part. And the medulla is salty, and I'll show you what I mean in a moment. But the loops of Henle are all located in the medulla. In you and I, there are some long ones and some short ones, but in general, they go into the medulla, and the medulla has a lot more salt, a lot more saltiness we'll talk about. And you see here where sodium gets actively pumped out and water will follow. The chapter is horrible at describing the magic of the loop of Henle. It's just the worst. Oh, it kills me every year when I read that. So I was hoping we could talk about it in person, but instead you're stuck here with me and this giant kangaroo rat. So, okay. So just to kind of give you a graphic illustration of what we're talking about with water following salt, i.e. osmosis. Osmosis is what draws water up this tree because the tree is more salty than the surrounding dirt. So water naturally gets drawn up to the leaves. And of course, the same process pulls water out of a snail if you put salt on it, which I never did as a young boy. Okay, moving on. Let's apply that to the nephron. I'm stealing this from Lauren, so thank you, Lauren. I'm just showing you here's a pretty ordinary mammal. The cow doesn't really need to conserve water. Cows are not very common in the deserts, but here's the kangaroo rat's loop of Henle, quite long. And as you all described, the medulla is more salty the deeper it gets, right? So here we are in the cortex. It's not so salty. It's a little more salty, very, very salty. The deeper we get, the saltier it gets, and the more salt, the more water will get drawn out. And remember, it's salty because there are little pumps. There are little pumps here that are pumping. I can't really draw an arrow, but these little pumps they're pumping sodium out. That's one reason why it's salty. Now, we're kind of oversimplifying when we use the word salty, but I think it's okay. It's a helpful way to understand this. A better term would be tonic or tonicity. Plasma, for example, has a certain level of solutes, electrolytes, for example, calcium, potassium, sodium, chloride, magnesium, and that gives plasma a particular saltiness. If you've ever cut your finger and tasted the blood, well, you've tasted that saltiness. In fluid therapy, if you give your patient a fluid that is as salty as plasma, we would call that fluid isotonic. Iso means same, and tonic basically means salty. So an isotonic fluid is the same level of saltiness as plasma. And in fact, you see the word isotonic show up in marketing. Here's a sports drink, right? It's isotonic. Here's some love your skin. I love the skin I'm in because I use isotonics, whatever that is. And I don't even know what this is, some dietary supplement, but thank goodness it's isotonic. It's kind of a dumb word. Of course, it just means it's got the same level of saltiness as you. But like I said, we're kind of oversimplifying. So if something is less salty than plasma, we call it hypotonic. If it's the same level, it's isotonic. And if it's more salty than plasma, we call it hypertonic. Well, the medulla of the kidney becomes more and more hypertonic the deeper we go. Right? So it's a little salty, a little more salty, saltier, saltier, right? Those are supposed to be salt shakers, all right? Salt shakers. Okay. So like I said, salty is a helpful way to think of tonicity, but it's not perfect. There is more than just salt in the medulla, okay? There is more than just sodium there. Urea, the waste product, yes, urea, the waste product, is also here, and it adds to the saltiness. Isn't that weird? In other words, your kidney actually makes good use of this waste product. So there's also a lot of urea, and if you've ever tried to cook kidneys, you'll know that you have to kind of soak them. People used to eat kidneys, and if you go to the supermarket, you can buy kidneys. But I think you have to soak it or do something to get that urea out. Otherwise, it might taste like urine. I'm not sure. So, so just keep that in mind that there's more to it than just salt. Anything that adds to the tonicity is what we're talking about here. It's not just salt, but it is very helpful for me to just think of it as saltiness. And there's a reason why we're doing this, is that this is a really important process in the body. And I'll just give you one example of why it's useful. We learned in pharmacology about patients with heart failure. They get fluid building up on their lungs. We call that pulmonary edema. These poor dogs and cats, they can't breathe. Well, you can give them a drug that will stop the loop of Henle from pumping out sodium. It will, I guess, make the medulla a little less salty, and so less water gets reabsorbed. And do you remember what that drug is? The drug that prevents sodium from getting reabsorbed? Called a loop diuretic. That's the category of drugs. And there's really only one that I've ever heard of, and that's furosemide. That's a diuretic, and it works on the loop of Henle. It's kind of like, well, it doesn't make the loop of Henle shorter, but it just, I guess it must make the medulla a little less salty. Anyway, I don't know if that's helpful or not, but I just wanted to throw that in there. Now, for the bird poop, I don't really have anything much to say, but several of you wrote that you thought that the name of the waste product was urea, that when you eat protein, that your body makes urea out of it first. That's second. the first thing your body makes is ammonia. Ammonia is the common name. Ammonia is what's found in Windex and Simple Green. Ammonia is a pretty good disinfectant. Ammonia kills coronavirus. Ammonia can kill you. And that's why your liver converts ammonia into urea. And that's why the little bird's liver, I guess, converts it into uric acid. So anyway, just wanted to make sure you understood what ammonia is. And that's all. Thank you. But be sure, and this goes to you for you too, be sure to check out the discussions and what I wrote on Canvas. All right, take care.